And WN. Smelling ourselves around here at 3-1, feeling pretty good about the Ravens after a very impressive Sunday night victory at the Confluence over the Pittsburgh Steelers, but standing in the way, as always, the land of Cleve. This is my former producer at Nasty Nationwide. We're going back now 2 decades. He currently lives out in Portland, Oregon, but travels the world more so than even I do as a sports media type. Bernard Bokenyi has been my friend for a long, long time. He is a Browns historian, expert, and pain sufferer. And if I call you a reformed radio comedian, is that fair to say that, Bernard?
Very much reformed. I got to tell you, Nestor, do you really need to get pumped up? I mean, Pittsburgh week, I get it. They're a rival. They're good. Can you really give enough respect to the Cleveland Browns to call it Cleveland week? Are they really deserving of that?
I don't know, dude. I watched Hard Knocks, and I got all worked up about like them being maybe a little better. And I know you don't live in Cleveland anymore. You watched them from afar. You covered them for a number of years as a media member in and around Cleveland and various other places, including our time together at Sporting News Radio in Chicago at the turn of the century. But this is a better version of the Browns, right? I mean, you're the Browns fan, kind of like me with the Orioles. I mean, the Orioles have no chance for the next 5 years, right? But, you know, the Browns, this is the year they sort of kind of have a little bit of a chance, and you start to see sort of the crack of a little bit of light, I think.
They have a chance in every capacity except for one, Nestor, and it's the most important position, the head coach. The fact that Hugh Jackson is still gainfully employed as the head coach of the Cleveland Browns is a laughing stock. I mean, let's just be honest. John Dorsey comes in as general manager last year towards the tail end of the year. And it was interesting because he came in with a few games left, so he got a chance to really see how bad things were. For those who aren't aware, Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, the genius that he is, decided the gentleman he was going to have pick his roster for 2 years was a lawyer. Sashi Brown was a lawyer. That's who was picking his roster. Let's not sugarcoat it. They were 1-31 in 2 years. So everybody said, okay, well, Hugh Jackson is an experienced coach. He deserves the benefit of the doubt. Let's see how he does. Yet week 1, after a tie at home against Pittsburgh, he leads off his press conference, Nestor, in a room that I've spent many a days in, and he said the same thing after week 1 that he was saying after every game last week. He made the quote, "We need things to be perfect to win a football game." I'm sorry. I'm tired of hearing the same cliches from Hugh Jackson. 4 games into this year, you have 1 victory. Your roster has been overhauled. There is 31 new players on this team as compared to the start of 2017. Every position has been upgraded with the exception of one, the left tackle, obviously Hall of Famer Joe Thomas having to retire. And that's not a spot you want to be young at, but every other spot has been significantly upgraded. Everybody can see it. And yet Hugh Jackson still says they have to be perfect to win a football game. This is getting tired, Nestor.
Well, they weren't perfect on Sunday. I mean, they had the game won twice in the last 3 minutes of the game. I mean, I'm sitting there at Heinz Field watching it on the wall, and, at one point, Ed Bouchette walked away and said, it's over. Browns are going to win. They're up 2 touchdowns. They had many, many opportunities, and then there was a comeback, and then there was a give back, and then there's overtime. It is kind of unthinkable that they lost the football game on Sunday to the Raiders.
Yes, and look, I'm not one to sit there and call out the officials. Yes, they blew 2 major calls. If you've seen the fumble that Derek Carr had, and yet somehow the referees blew the whistle saying David Carr's forward progress was stopped while the ball was out, yeah, they messed that up. And, of course, Carlos Hyde had a first down with 1:38 or whatever it was left on the clock, and the Browns had an 8-point lead, and then they reversed it. But you cannot put yourself in a situation as a football team to be vulnerable like that, where one call by the referees affects your game. Good teams find a way to overcome those issues. Good head coaches find a way to overcome that. and that's not what Hugh Jackson can do. It's beyond frustrating, and I'm looking at this year knowing, I mean, look, Baltimore's coming into town this weekend, and apparently they're good all of a sudden. I don't know how that happened, but we know it's going to be a close game because that's what the Browns do. They always play close games. Baltimore's probably going to win. I'm looking at a 31-27 kind of final, and you guys will probably have a nice 2-game edge in the division, and at least I guess we all can be happy. I guess Pittsburgh's got problems.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a fascinating division all the way around because I know while you're down on the Browns, I still see them as a major threat this week and a much better defense for sure to combat the Ravens. But you watch the Ravens play on Sunday night, Bernie. I'm bullish on the Ravens. I've been bullish on the Ravens for months. I've always been a Flacco defender around here that when given the right parts, he can be this kind of quarterback. We're seeing the best version of the Ravens right now and really a much better version of the Bengals as well.
Let's real quick on the Bengals. Andy Dalton probably is one of the more disrespected quarterbacks, and I'm probably guilty of that too. But you know what? I was watching them against Atlanta on Sunday, and he was just going toe-to-toe. Obviously, A.J. Green made just a ridiculous play at the end of the game.
He's so good, isn't he? I mean, really, A.J. Green.
A.J. Green is, for my money, just as good as Antonio Brown and anybody else in the league. And he probably doesn't get a lot of attention because he doesn't bring attention upon himself, which I like, and I respect that. But the Bengals, I mean, they're throwing the ball around like crazy. Now, they've got some health issues at the running back spot. They were actually down to just one running back for a portion of the second half. Giovanni Bernard was their only healthy running back, and Cincinnati's definitely a threat. But, for Baltimore, look, Joe Flacco, we knew at the draft, when the Ravens drafted Lamar Jackson, that, hey, it very well could light a fire under his behind, and it looks like it has. And Joe Flacco is hardly, a 39-year-old guy. He's a Super Bowl champion, and maybe that was the spark he needed to know that, okay, this franchise is not kidding. They're going to throw me to the side if I don't shape up. And Joe Flacco will still have employment and will probably still be a starter in this league, but it seems to have worked successfully, getting Flacco going. I mean, I'm just looking at some stats here, Nestor. He's got 1,200 yards already through 4 games. That's pretty impressive. And you know what? This division just might come down to Baltimore and Cincinnati. And I got to tell you, this is a game that I think Baltimore needs to have. You can't cough up a game against a team that you're better than. But the Browns' defense is improved, and so we'll see.
I think in the middle of 3 on the road, Bernie. I mean, this is number 2. Then to Tennessee next week, back home for a week, then off to Charlotte. So 4 out of 5 on the road, and we finish up on the road in the division on Sunday. We will have played at Cincinnati, at Pittsburgh, at Cleveland by the end of the day on Sunday, and could potentially, if serve holds, could be 4-1. I mean, that would be a pretty impressive start to the Ravens right now, and we would start hanging the purple Festivus lights around here, I think.
Well, come on, let's slow down a little bit.
You're pumping my brakes, are you? Don't do that to me. Come on.
No, hey. If my team can't win, well, actually, I don't want any team to win because I hate every
Your
other team.
Your team can win. You're a Tribe fan, right? I mean, you got the whole month ahead of you.
Well, yeah, I mean, this just might be the October finally for the Indians because nobody's talking about them. They didn't win 55 games in a row or whatever they did last year. They just got 4 starters with 200 strikeouts and ho-hum, their experience. Who knows? Maybe this is the year, but I'm so frustrated as a football fan, though, Nestor. It's affecting my ability to be excited about the Indians. It's yet another reason I can't stand the Cleveland Browns anymore.
Well, what would be an expectation for you at this point? Because they have been in these games. They could be 4-0. They could be 0-4, right? But they're not. They're 1-2-1, and they have a chance this week against the Ravens to really kind of step up and say that they are a different team. And the Baker Mayfield thing's fascinating all the way around because I thought Tyrod Taylor was going to be the guy. I don't know that he had a whole lot of help around him on that Thursday night. But Baker Mayfield has certainly Wally pipped this thing and seized the day. He's going to throw interceptions, and that's really where a team that plays sort of smash-mouth defense, which the Ravens are playing right now, wanting to take the ball away from you. I have a feeling the Ravens are going to get a few gifts on Sunday, and for me, that would be the difference in the game.
Well, they should, because think about this. Mayfield obviously came in the Jets game on Thursday night. This is going to be his first home start, so there's going to be jitters. And look, every rookie's going to have ups and downs. If you watch Josh Allen of the Bills this past Sunday at Green Bay, he didn't look like he did the week before in Minnesota. He looked pretty terrible, quite frankly. So all these guys, Darnold and Rosen, they're going to have ups and downs. That's what rookies do. I mean, if anybody remembers Peyton Manning in '98, his rookie season, he did not look the part.
Yeah.
It takes some time. It's very challenging for somebody to have a Roethlisberger-esque rookie year when you win 15 games. But yeah, Baker Mayfield's going to give you opportunities, but I thought that Tyrod Taylor would be the guy all season long. Obviously, he had the concussion that, created the situation. But the fact of the matter is, Baker Mayfield right now looks like he gets the ball out quickly, much quicker than Tyrod Taylor. He's much more decisive. I don't know how big of an arm Baker Mayfield has, but he's got some high velocity, which they like. But in the NFL, for a young quarterback, it's about getting the ball out and getting it where it needs to be, and that's what he can do. There are some pieces there, but yeah, he's going to make mistakes, and Baltimore's got a couple of guys there that have been there for a while and know how to take advantage of a young quarterback. So you'll have opportunities, trust me, to probably get a few turnovers this weekend.
Bernard Bokenyi joining us here. He is my former producer of Nasty Nationwide. We worked together at Sporting News Radio 2 decades ago. He is my bleeding heart Cleveland pal, a long-suffering Browns fan and Tribe supporter and LeBron celebrator. We're going to be at Buffalo Wild Wings on Wednesday night in Bel Air this week, swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. And for There Goes My Hero, joined by tight end Nick Boyle, as well as wide receiver Willie Snead. So we hope to see your face in the place on Wednesday night, 7:30. Also, the night that the Yankees get eliminated, and also the night that the Capitals raise the Stanley Cup banner in Washington, D.C. So big doings at Buffalo Wild Wings, 7:30 on Wednesday night. We planned it to be a big celebration. Come on out, have some fun. I'm going to talk to Nick Boyle about the Show Your Soft Side campaign and his love of dogs and my love of our cat as well. So all that's happening on Wednesday night. Also, brought to you by Freedmont Mortgage, where they always remind you, don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. You need the right lender. That's Freedmont Mortgage. My pal Carl Delmont got together with him at Maritime Magic last week down at the Living Classrooms Foundation. If you're buying or you're selling or you're thinking about it, go to Freedmont.com. Get the education you need about getting into the home buying market or moving around, or maybe lowering your monthly payment. Fremont is good at that, and they also sponsor all of our swabbings for the Bone Marrow Registry. Also brought to you by our friends at Lee Tessier, Baltimore's premier realty team and the folks I trust with my real estate transactions. Learn more about all they do at leetessier.com. Bernard Bokenyi is our guest here. We're talking Tribe. We're talking a little bit of Brownies, but dude, let's kick on the Steelers a little bit on a week when the Ravens win, and you guys have them next week after us. So there's a lot of AFC North duking it out going on here into October. Some thoughts about the mess that is the Steelers and Bell, and obviously the unfortunate tragedy with Ryan Shazier last year. This looks like a humble, different franchise right now, Bernard. It's not often the Ravens go in there and punch the Steelers in the mouth the way they did on Sunday night.
No, and I know that you're close with Mike Tomlin, Nestor, and I remember the day that Tomlin was hired, and I looked at the TV screen. I'm like, God, all right, that's a football coach. They did it again. They found the next guy. But isn't it interesting how drama always seems to find that locker room? And, whether it's Antonio Brown doing a live social media, broadcast during the post-game speech by Mike Tomlin a few years ago. And now I think the Steelers really underestimated Le'Veon Bell's stubbornness when it comes to this contract situation. And they shouldn't have, because this is what he did last year. Now, he reported just before Week 1 last year when he was franchised, but he did an interview in January with ESPN, making it pretty clear, I thought, that he wasn't going to have any of this and that he was going to stand his ground. I'm surprised the Steelers didn't take him seriously, and now these reports that they're actively trying to trade him. I mean, Nestor, who's going to be able to take on the salary, whatever it ends up being, because he's losing $850,000 per week. Right now, it would be around $9 million or so if somebody were to make the trade for him. There's not a lot of teams that have that much cap space for this season. Not to mention the fact you can't extend a guy on a franchise tag. You can sure talk to him and say we want to sign you, but you can't extend him. So you're only getting him for a few weeks. What kind of shape is he going to be in? He hasn't taken a hit in how many months? So
I know the Jets kicked a tire on him, but really, the Jets aren't going anywhere either, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. So you got to look first at teams that have some money. So you're cutting it down there, but then you got to look at teams that would conceivably need a running back to put them over the top for this season only, and there's not a lot of teams. And the team that was kind of appealing was the 49ers because it would have been out of conference, but losing Garoppolo, they're not doing anything this year. I'll tell you, the one team, Nestor, that if the Steelers are dead serious and they want to trade him, the team that they should send him to, although they won't, is the Jacksonville Jaguars. They've got issues with Fournette's health. T.J. Yeldon is an okay substitute, but Jacksonville is very much a win-now team. But Pittsburgh's not about to deal him to the team that beat him in the playoffs last year. But that's the only team I can look at and see you might be able to get them to fork over your second-round asking price, because I think Le'Veon Bell could put Jacksonville over the top, even if Fournette is healthy. But I don't see how Pittsburgh is able to move him. It's too complex.
Well, you also say win for now and win now. Who's more win now than the Steelers? And by the way, they're not winning right now. And
no.
I don't know what they would be or wouldn't be with him or without him, if he reported, if he was healthy. But that's ifs and buts and candies and nuts. I don't – that's not happening. And they are what they are right now, which to me looks like a shell of a former pretty good football team.
And look, Le'Veon Bell's a great player, but he can't make a tackle, okay? Their defense is terrible. That is not a Pittsburgh Steelers defense. There are problems on that team that go a lot farther than the running back. Now, James Conner had a good week one. He's fizzled out since then. But even if Le'Veon Bell were to come back right now, there's a lot of emotions in that locker room that would have to be repaired. I could not believe the comments in week one by the offensive linemen where they were really disappointed in Le'Veon Bell. Nestor, I don't know. You've been doing this longer than I did. I can't recall.
I've talked about it all month. With everybody. And I had Ed Bouchette on last week and Mark Cabali both weeks where they were, at the locker when it was happening. I'm like, man, I've stood at lockers and watched Ray Lewis retire kind of impromptu. I've seen all sorts of stuff. And, frustration, anger, Steve Smith bullying reporters for no good reason. Bad stuff. Albert Bell and Hannah Storm. I was on the dugout when that happened back in 95. I've seen it all. I've never seen that where a bunch of players throw their teammate. You just don't see that in the modern era, especially not over money.
And I feel about it that I don't blame them for feeling the way they did. And I don't blame Le'Veon Bell for feeling the way he feels. But the fact that they came out and said it, think about how much time that offensive line was investing in those guys sitting down in a cafeteria or a meeting room and saying, okay, here's what we're going to say. They were spending time in week one figuring out what their message to the media was going to be when they should have been in their playbook. They should have been studying film, doing something to be more productive to win a football game. And there's been time that all of those people in that building have been spending on something that's not helping them win football games. Le'Veon Bell's not coming in until maybe week 10 just so he can get his accrued season. And by then, this season is going to be lost for Pittsburgh if they don't get things in gear. And I just don't see how that's going to happen. They just don't look like a Pittsburgh Steelers team to me.
Bernard Bokenyi has been my friend for 2 decades. He is out in Portland, Oregon, but always watching Cleveland sports and following the Browns as closely as anybody that I know. Always with some great insights. I always crystal ball this with you, and I'll have you on a little later on in the year. We play again, and maybe at that point the Tribe will be world champions. I can only hope at this point, right?
Please.
Stranger things have happened, especially with bullpens in the postseason and all that. And I'm a big fan of Tito as well. And usually the team that wins 110 games doesn't win the World Series. So that would say my thoughts about Boston. They better win Game 1. But for the Browns and expectations, do you really expect that Haley will be the head coach by week 12? Or, do you expect more drama, or do you expect this thing to sort of buckle down and be sort of a solid 6-9-1 or a 7-8-1 or a couple of upsets or beating the Ravens this week or knocking the snot out of the Steelers next week? It's all sitting there. They're capable of winning any week because they have enough talent now to do that.
They're capable. There's talent, but ultimately, Nestor, I don't see Hugh Jackson being able to put it all together because last year they lost 16 games. They had the worst season in the history of the NFL, tied with Detroit, but still the worst. But even at that, they had 7 or 8 games last year where they were in those situations of if one play went differently, if this one thing happened, if Corey Coleman caught that stupid pass in Week 16, they win a football game. And I'm seeing the same kind of reality 4 weeks into this season where if one thing went different, in Week 1, it was if Zane Gonzalez hit a field goal, you win. In Week 2, it was if Zane Gonzalez hit a field goal. Against the Raiders this past Sunday, it was, if they don't miss that call and a Derek Carr fumble. I'm seeing these same kind of realities where Hugh Jackson can't overcome things. I think this season is going to be nothing but drama. You mentioned Todd Haley, new offensive coordinator. He's a former head coach. Also Greg Williams, defensive coordinator, famous for Spygate in New Orleans. He's also a former head coach. And so you've got 2 coordinators who could easily step in as the interim guy. I don't understand how Hugh Jackson still has a job at this point. He's shown what he is. I think ultimately this could be a lost season because even if they end up winning 5 or 6 games, you're not going anywhere. And my concern is long term. Now that you've got some foundation pieces, you've got the young quarterback in Baker Mayfield. You've got to get that head coach coming in who's going to believe in him. And I point to 2 guys in the league right now. I point to Matt Nagy in Chicago. You look what he's doing with Mitch Trubisky. I mean, there's something there with Chicago, and obviously out in L.A. with Goff and McVay. Wow, I mean, they're just lighting it up. They're the talk of the town. So, the Browns, I don't see why you keep Hugh Jackson any longer. This season's not going to go anywhere. You've got capable coordinators who can right the ship. There's enough young talent there, but crystal ball-wise, I mean, going into the season, Nestor, I said 6 wins was probably high end. It still may end up being that kind of a reality, but I'm not going to feel great about it because we've seen this team is that much better, and you are going to see a good defense this weekend. And Myles Garrett is quickly establishing himself as a top 5 defensive player in the league. That's not an overreaction. I mean, anybody can see it.
Well, he was drafted to be that. That's his pedigree, right?
Yeah. I mean, he's
why are we shocked when, like, a Joe Thomas actually emerges or, Myles, a guy who's actually good? Joe Haden is the best player on the Steelers right now.
The Browns didn't need him either. But, look, there's some good young pieces on this team. But, look, I'll take John Harbaugh. I mean, I know there's been some people in Baltimore didn't want him around anymore, so I'll take Harbaugh if you guys are done with him, or if Tomlin somehow gets booted from Pittsburgh, I'll take either one of them.
Bernard Bokenyi has been my friend for 2 decades. He is struggling with this whole LeBron loss. Are you done with the NBA now? I mean, you got a ring, right? It was fun.
What's the NBA? Never heard of it.
Right, exactly. You're in Portland. I forgot. Hey, Bernard, always good to catch up with you, man, and I hope life's going well for you. Always fun to follow along and talk a little Cleveland sports with you. I'll be thinking of you. I still have not made it to the Christmas Story house.
Dude, you got to get to the Christmas Story house.
I'm not taking my wife this week, and I kind of promised her I'd take her, but she refuses to go to Cleveland at this point, so I don't know. I got a couple extra tickets for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, so I'm going to do that on Saturday, I think.
Well, yeah. You got to do the Rock Hall. You got to get some pierogies, and you got to go to the Christmas Story house. They're not far. I mean, look, you've been to Cleveland enough. You know there's some good things to do, and it's easy to get around. Some good dining. Michael Simon's all over. He's got some good places.
I am familiar with Mabel and her barbecue, absolutely. So we'll get a little bit of that going this weekend. Ravens and the Browns out in the land of Cleve. Bernard, be good. Take care of yourself.
Thanks, Nestor. 31-27, you guys get the victory.
That was my prediction for the Ravens to beat the Steelers, and it turned out 26-14. But either way, it's all good. We're out in the Bayou Toyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app, becoming crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships digitally to your email inbox. That's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, as well as our friends at the Maryland Jockey Club and Laurel, where the Maryland Million is 2.5 weeks away. That's October the 20th. My 50th birthday is a week and a half away. We'll be out in Nashville for that. I'll be in Cleveland solo this weekend, and you can find me out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.